The Rebel Capitalist Show.
For someone who's interested, maybe in international real estate, maybe it's Cambodia, maybe it's Turkey, maybe it's
Yeah.
Colombia, what type of yields could they expect? You're just talking about a rental property, like a buy and hold rental property. And what would be maybe some of the downsides and maybe some of the upsides compared to investing in the United States?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, the upsides are in many countries, including Colombia. You can get a residence permit, you can get a citizenship, you can work towards citizenship. I mean, for me right now, with everything going on in the world, most people probably don't want to do so at the level that I'm doing. But I'm working on a sixth citizenship. At some point, I'm going to kind of stop. I have a couple residence permits on top of that. I think having diversification, that if you're traveling, if you want to go someplace, if you need a place, let's say you're in crypto and you have a hard time, they don't want your US passport. I want to have as many options as possible. And so real estate, you go to Colombia, sub $200,000, you get permanent residence and you're on your way. Many countries in Latin America do that. Cambodia doesn't, but many countries here in Eastern Europe do. And now look at what's happening in Canada. I want to have options.
Yeah.
And Colombia, for everyone who says, oh, the taxes are high, the tax system is relatively straightforward. It's not like a European tax system. I mean, you can spend a good amount of time there, and it's a very kind of cut and dry tax system before you've got to pay taxes. By the way, some of the lowest taxes overall in the OECD when you add it all up. But yields have certainly been scrunched. I think your deal is an incredible yield for what it is for turnkey. In Asia, you generally see a little bit lower yields. I think that my friend generally gets, and I get, 6-7% distributions. Now he's managing that, so maybe it's a little bit higher on your own. But
Cambodia,
in Asia, you kind of need someone to run it. What's that?
Cambodia.
That's in Cambodia. I mean, you're getting a dollarized 6.5-7%. That includes someone managing it. In a Turkey, I think you could probably get close to what you're doing, 9%, something like that. But the challenge is you're not going to get it in these best areas. So people need to know what they're getting into. Do you want great yield, or do you want something that's beautiful you would move into yourself? So if you're going to buy in Nişantaşı in Turkey, you're probably getting 4% because it's just how it's going to work. So I think if you're doing stuff that maybe isn't quite as livable as you would like, you can be close to 10% still, but certainly those have gotten squished as you see people who have capital they want to deploy. Asia, again, kind of a prime place for that. Maybe Georgia, not as much of a place for that. Maybe it's still 7-8% in dollars. But Colombia, I think, has been one of the better yield places. The reason that fewer people that I work with do it is because they just don't want to be down there to deal with the bureaucracy. In Georgia, for example, even in Turkey, you set it and forget it to pay pay everything. In Colombia, as we were discussing beforehand, there's a bit more going on there, a little bit more bureaucracy.
How much debt is, let me rephrase that. What percentage of property owners in a Cambodia or a Turkey have mortgages? Have you looked into that?
I don't know the exact number. I think in Cambodia, it's a very small number. I think in Turkey, it's certainly, it's more of a developed banking market.
In
so
Colombia, it's maybe like 10 or 15%. It's incredibly low.
Yeah, I think in some places, like especially emerging countries, it's going to be very low. You're seeing a rise. Let's just take Georgia, for example, great rise in consumer debt. There even seem to be now doing debt for non-residents. I had someone the other day say he's getting a 70% LTV loan from the bank on a secondhand purchase. So it's not even some endorsed developer that they have a deal with. But yeah, to me, that's a very beneficial thing. It keeps prices somewhat low, but I think you'll see more consumer debt coming into some of these markets as they develop. But I would imagine it's probably a similar number in a place like Cambodia and probably higher in a place like Turkey.
Yeah, I like it because I think that's actually it can be a pro and a con. It's a con in the sense that there's less liquidity. You're not going to sell a property in 4 hours like you do in the United States. The benefit is I think it really limits your downside because if very few people have a mortgage payment, it's tough to have a GFC, where housing prices go down by 50% in nominal terms from 2006 to 2012. Very, very difficult for that to happen. So, and I like to point that out because a lot of people, especially from the West, they don't even, they're so accustomed to just everyone having a mortgage that they've never really even thought about what would happen if a real estate market, if very few people had mortgages.
This is, to me, the biggest thing right now And, I'm putting out the word, go where you're treated best. There are 252 territories and countries in the world, if you exclude Antarctica. The idea that yours, or the ones that are similar to yours, so let's say you're a Canadian and saying, oh my God, I got to get out of here. Let me go to Florida. Let me go to the UK. Let me go to Australia. Let me go somewhere like that. If you get out of that bubble, you're going to find that what you know of the world is probably dramatically different everywhere else. And so the idea that, oh, well, it's just until this happens, or it's just until that happens. Well, nowhere is perfect. But as you point out, I mean, the odds for something catastrophic to happen are much stronger. So, I mean, I'm buying stuff that either there's a strong demand to resell, which is what you're doing, or that I just want to own until the end of time. And so, if I look at a 20-year time horizon for Turkey, do I think Turkey is going to be a stronger player or a weaker player? I think it's going to be stronger. And in the meantime, if you want a passport from a country that's uncorrelated with the West and that's agitating the West to a certain degree as kind of a complementary addition to your portfolio of passports, you can do that as well. So that's what interests me in that.
Can you outline what the current passport program is in Turkey? Because I think it's pretty attractive, isn't it?
So they made some changes for 2022, but the deal in Turkey is you need to buy the Turkish lira equivalent of 250,000 US dollars in real estate. And so there's a few things you need to satisfy there, but it has to be an appraisal. So if you spend 250 on a resale, it might appraise at 235, for example, especially if there's not as many comps. So you probably are going to want to spend, if you're buying a resale, above. If you're buying in, a new condo building, obviously you have plenty of comps unless you're the first guy buying. But I mean, those are often dramatically overpriced. There's a lot of scams and schemes going on out there. So the resale market is incredibly tight. But if you can get it appraised at 250, and then you can keep it to that number, by the time you get your conformity certificate, a couple of days later, then that's 250. You hold it for 3 days or for 3 years. They put a title deed restriction on it, so you physically can't sell it. Right. But during that time, you're free to rent it. You're free to use it. You can do whatever you want with it. And again, if you buy correctly, you could have decent hold values in US dollars, even if the lira goes down. You can also put $500,000 in the bank. You have to do that now in lira. So whatever the number is at the time of the deposit opening, they did put in a condition that if you lose more on the value of the lira dropping than the interest rate, the central bank is going to reimburse you. So if interest rates are 15% and the lira goes down 20 against the dollar, they will give you the 5 if you want to put your faith in that. That's also a 3-year hold. Bonds are a 3-year hold, or you can hire 50 people. Probably not worth it. Better deals for that elsewhere. But for most people, buying out an apartment, $250.
What type of visa-free travel does that passport have?
So a Turkish passport is very complimentary, let's say a Caribbean passport, where they're very strong. It's what I call a T or C plus. No US access, no European Union access or UK, but a lot of other places. So every single country in the Americas, I think with the exception of Guyana. So from Mexico, which is an e-visa, it's a little bit more hit or miss, but everything on down, you've got access to all of Latin America and the Caribbean. You've got access to all of Eastern Europe. So here where I'm at right now in the Balkans, you've got those all covered. You don't always get those with many passports that you can obtain. Central Asia, Japan, which is a hard country to get actually if you're not American, or if you don't want to be American anymore, or if you're on some lesser passport. Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, again, very well covered. Most countries that aren't Western countries can't go to Thailand. And then you get a few countries that again are kind of unless you're an American or European, hard to get. Morocco, Paraguay, Brunei, a couple of weird ones. So it's very strong. Russia, e-visa. So it's very strong if you don't want to go to the West, or you have a European residence permit, or you're getting Caribbean citizenship, or if you've already got a good passport and you plan to keep it and use this only as a backup.
Right. Makes sense.